On average, 1 in 100 people exhibits psychopathic tendencies. Their behavior is unpredictable to the point where they can harm even their own family members. This means that if you know 100 people, one of them could be a psychopath. Here's the story of one of Canada's most shocking psychopathic couples. Paul Bernardo and Karla Homolka fell in love at first sight and got married. This seemingly beautiful couple would soon commit violent and perverse crimes that shocked all of Canada. In December 1990, 15-year-old Tammy Homolka died mysteriously in her own home. 6 months later, in June 1991, the dismembered body of 14-year-old Leslie Mahaffey was found in a concrete block in Lake Gibson, Ontario. Then, in April 1992, the naked body of 17-year-old Kristen French was discovered in a ditch in Burlington. At first, no one suspected this attractive blonde couple could be behind such brutal crimes. Paul, an accounting trainee, and Karla, who worked at a veterinary clinic, looked like any ordinary young couple next door. Paul was born in 1964 in Scarborough, Ontario. His family was deeply troubled, and at 16 he was shocked to learn he was born from his mother's extramarital affair. On the surface, he appeared to be a well-adjusted teenager who excelled in Boy Scouts and sports, but he exhibited problematic behaviors like peeping from an early age. As an adult, his behavior became increasingly pathological, abusing girlfriends and demanding sadistic sexual encounters. Karla, on the other hand, grew up as the eldest of 3 sisters in what appeared to be a normal middle-class family. She was a lively girl with blonde hair and blue eyes, but as a teenager, she began showing strange behaviors, developing interests in the supernatural, death, and mysticism, wearing black clothes, and even becoming obsessed with digging up dead pets. In her late teens, she worked at an animal hospital. Though both appeared normal on the outside, dangerous tendencies were growing within them. In 1987, 17-year-old Karla met 23-year-old accounting trainee Paul at a pet-related event in Toronto. There was an immediate connection between these two who were attracted to each other at first sight. Paul was Karla's perfect ideal. Older, taller, blonde, handsome, with a car and a job. He appeared strong and controlling to her, and Karla quickly became obsessed with him as their relationship developed. Strangely, from the year Paul and Karla met, an unprecedented series of violent sexual crimes began occurring in the Scarborough area of Toronto. Known as the Scarborough Rapist, this perpetrator committed 18 sexual assaults over 3 years. The rapist would attack victims from behind, threatening to harm them if they screamed. His crimes became increasingly violent over time, including attacking victims with rocks and sticks. Profilers predicted that if such a criminal wasn't caught, he would eventually escalate to murder. By 1990, Paul and Karla were engaged, and Paul began spending more time with Karla's family. Paul had a particular obsession with virgins, but Karla wasn't a virgin when they met, as she had previous boyfriends. Displeased with this, Paul began showing interest in Karla's 15-year-old sister Tammy, who resembled Karla so closely they looked almost like twins. To Tammy, Paul was her sister's cool boyfriend, but Paul's thoughts were entirely sexual. The shocking part is that when Paul asked Karla to let him take Tammy's virginity, Karla agreed. She decided to gift her sister to her boyfriend for Christmas 1990. Karla stole animal anesthetics from the veterinary clinic where she worked. On December 29, 1990, while their parents were at home, she gave Tammy alcohol laced with anesthetics. Once Tammy lost consciousness, Paul raped her. Unconscious, Tammy's face turned blue, she vomited, and died of asphyxiation. Paul and Karla quickly came up with an excuse, called emergency services, and Tammy's death was ruled an accidental death. But Tammy's death wasn't the end of their crime spree. It was just the beginning. In May 1990, police pursuing the Scarborough Rapist finally got a break when he made the mistake of attacking from the front for the first time. A witness report allowed police to create an accurate composite sketch. Shortly after the sketch was distributed, a tip came in that the image closely resembled 25-year-old Paul. When police summoned him, he arrived at the station wearing a neat shirt and tie, with neatly cut hair, appearing very calm and collected. When asked if he had problems with women, he answered, "None at all." When asked if he had a girlfriend, he answered, "Karla." But at the time, this name meant nothing to the police. He immediately complied when asked for hair, saliva, and blood samples. Unfortunately, since DNA technology was in its early stages, Paul's samples remained untested for 2 years. This delay would lead to more deaths, and it wasn't until 1993 that DNA results confirmed Paul Bernardo was the perpetrator. Back in 1991, Karla and Paul continued preparations for their June wedding despite Tammy's death. Surprisingly, Karla complained that her parents mourned Tammy's death too long and wanted all attention to return to her wedding. Before their marriage, Paul and Karla rented a house in a peaceful town called St. Catharines. Paul's distorted desires hadn't disappeared. He told Karla, "It would be nice to bring someone home and do whatever we want with them." Rather than attacking women outside, he wanted to control someone like a slave at home. On June 15, 1991, 14-year-old Leslie Mahaffey became the victim of his sick fantasy. One night, she arrived home late after breaking curfew. Her parents were strict enough to lock the doors after curfew. Normally, she would have rung the doorbell, but that night she didn't and was sitting on the front steps. Paul, who happened to be passing by, saw her and approached her, eventually kidnapping her and bringing her to his home. That night, Karla was sleeping and woke up when Paul brought Leslie home. What's shocking is the reason Karla got angry, not because a girl had been brought home for sexual assault, but because Paul had used their wedding champagne glasses with Leslie. For 36 hours, Paul assaulted Leslie to fulfill his desires and eventually strangled her to death. The next day, when Karla's parents visited for dinner, Leslie's body was in the basement. While Karla went up and down to the basement to bring food, the body was right there. The following day, Paul dismembered Leslie's body, placed it in concrete blocks, and threw them into a nearby lake. Coincidentally, on June 29, 1991, the very day Paul and Karla had their lavish wedding, a fisherman discovered Leslie's body as the lake's water level had dropped, causing extreme fear among Ontario residents. After their marriage, they began looking for another young victim, but this time the couple hunted together. Kristen French was a beautiful, cautious girl from an ordinary family with a bright personality and good sense of humor. After Leslie's death became known, she always advised her friends to be careful and not talk to strangers. On April 16, 1992, Paul and Karla committed a bold crime. In broad daylight, as Kristen was walking home from school, Karla pretended to be lost, holding a map. Seeing a young woman who needed help, Kristen readily offered assistance. As she leaned down to look at the map, Karla grabbed her, and Paul appeared from behind, pushing her into their car. They kept Kristen captive for about 3 days, videotaping all the assaults. After 3 days of humiliating assault, Paul strangled Kristen to death. The couple bathed Kristen's dead body, cut off all her hair, and dumped her in the countryside. Soon after, Kristen's naked body was found in a ditch, plunging the community into unprecedented fear. After Kristen's murder, Paul's paranoia became severe. He began abusing and beating Karla, and their relationship started to fall apart. In 1993, everything began when Karla reported to police that Paul had beaten her. At the same time, the Scarborough rapist investigation team finally received the results of Paul's DNA sample taken 2 years earlier. It matched the Scarborough rapist, and Paul was arrested. When questioned by investigators, Karla told them that Paul had confessed to her about the Scarborough rapes. Paul denied all allegations and, unlike his previously cooperative demeanor, refused to cooperate with any investigation. Karla, on the other hand, actively engaged in conversations. She admitted her involvement in Paul's murders of Leslie and Kristen, as well as her sister Tammy's death. However, she claimed she was also a victim, a battered wife and an involuntary accomplice. The prosecution faced a difficult decision. With little direct evidence of Paul's involvement in the murders, they needed a witness to prove him guilty. The only way to send Paul to prison was to believe Karla's story. Eventually, she agreed to a deal with prosecutors to testify against her husband Paul in exchange for a 12-year prison sentence. After Karla made a deal with prosecutors, but before Paul's trial began, a shocking discovery was made: videotapes hidden in the ceiling of Paul and Karla's bathroom. These tapes had titles like Kristen, Leslie, and Paul and Me, written in Karla's handwriting along with heart and flower stickers. The content was shocking. The tape showed that, contrary to Karla's claims of being forced to participate in the crimes, she was actively enjoying and participating in the sexual assault and torture of the girls with Paul. Among the tapes was footage of Paul and Karla sexually assaulting her unconscious sister Tammy. The most chilling fact was that a tape recorded within 3 weeks of Tammy's death showed Karla wearing Tammy's clothes to seduce Paul. Not only did she feel no guilt about her sister's death, but Karla's unconscionable behavior in the videos led many people to speculate that she might have actually been the catalyst for the murders Paul committed. Despite the shocking content of the videotapes, the deal between Karla and the prosecution had already been established and was not reversed. In exchange for her testimony, Karla was sentenced to a total of 12 years for her crimes, while Paul was found guilty of 3 murders and numerous sexual assaults, sentenced to life imprisonment. Karla completed her sentence and was released in 2005, reportedly living under a new identity. Remember how we said that psychopaths are 1 in 100 people around us? Perhaps at this very moment, one of your neighbors, colleagues, or friends might be wearing a perfect mask, and no one knows what's hiding behind that mask.